Bam, McVeigh, OKC. It's ridiculous. You know, previous article where they're talking about Tea Partiers forming militia. I mean, all this stuff. It comes together and it puts all these people in a pretty little conspiracy theorist basket. And as soon as anybody hears any of the words, you know, I mean, they're all becoming crazy lunatic conspiracy theorist buzzwords now. Tea Partier, truther, you know, investigate 9/11, all these things. Like, if you say any of these things or call yourself any of these things, that's going to be, you know, just as conspiracy theorist, and the words conspiracy theory have, you know, been pushed to mean things that they don't mean. Now conspiracy theorist has become synonymous with tinfoil hat wearing fringe wingnut, when in all reality there are vast conspiracies that are enacted around us on a daily basis all over the place. Conspiracies aren't an uncommon thing. Conspiracies are actually quite the common thing, but it's all in the stigma that these words have been given. And you can look right to the people who are running the world for responsibility for that, and you can look to them for other ridiculous stigmas that they've put out into our society, such as don't talk about religion or politics in the bar or in public. Well, first of all, here's an interesting little fact for you all out there in internet land. Bars and pubs used to be known as speakeasies. You know why they were called the speakeasy? It's because you actually would go there to speak easy. You would go there and you would discuss what have you. No taboo topics. You could discuss whatever you want. It was encouraged. The bars and the pubs, they were called speakeasies because people were encouraged to go there and voice and discuss and debate political opinions and views of the day, and current events and things such as this. And now all of that has been stripped away. Now, look at society. If you're politically knowledgeable, if you're astute, if you're well read, especially if it's any information that goes against anything that any, God forbid, college professor would say. I mean, we look at what happens to college professors that tell the truth. What happens? They get fired. What's up, Kevin Barrett? That's for you. Can't believe what they did to you. But you know what? You have 2 radio shows now, and in all reality, you're doing a great thing, just as great as teaching was. So keep standing your ground on that one, Mr. Barrett. But sorry, I digress. But let's get back to the article here. He called McVeigh and his supporters profoundly alienated, disconnected people who bought into his militant anti-government line. Furthermore, Mr. Clinton said the internet has allowed political messages to reach both the serious and the seriously disturbed. Conservative anger over health care reform did coincide with a rash of threats against members of Congress, and a few people have been arrested for threats against House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Senator Patty Murray and GOP House Whip Eric Cantor. The Tea Party movement, he said, has negative stereotypes of the group that are not true. Mr. Clinton said that lawmakers should try harder to distinguish between acceptable dialogue and rhetoric that crosses the line, the Times reports. Have at it, he said. You can attack politics, criticize their policies, don't demonize them, and don't say things that will encourage violent opposition. Really, don't say things that will encourage violent opposition. I don't think that encourages violent opposition. When you call something a gangster government, and you have a government that is using false flag attacks to bring in body scanners, that's a gangster government. When your government is purposely engineering the collapse of the dollar, which is the world reserve currency, to bring in a North American Union currency, or if they're ballsy enough, just jump straight to the world currency. I don't know. I'd say that's telling the truth. I wouldn't say that that's fear-mongering, and I wouldn't say that that's inciting violence. I would say that inciting violence is inciting violence. There's a vast difference between inciting violence and telling the truth. At least one Republican is seeking to lower the partisan rancor. Senator Tom Coburn recently attracted attention for calling Pelosi a nice lady and telling constituents to rely on more than Fox News for their information. Oh, Lord. See how they do that? Rely on more than Fox News for their... It's always, they stick to the mainstream, don't they? Fox, MSNBC, CNN, CBS, ABC. If it doesn't come from one of these sources, but you got MSNBC on the left and Fox News on the right for the most part. CNN tries to play the middle. But there you have that, and I think it's interesting. Again, you have the OKC connection there made by Clinton. They're tying us all up together in a pretty basket that they're demonizing. And I don't know. I mean, I really wouldn't doubt that eventually you're going to see something come together. Because there are a lot of Muslims out there that believe 9/11 was an inside job, as obviously it was. But I could very well see one of the Muslims for 9/11 Truth. I could see them being infiltrated or possibly, provocateured into pulling something off violent. That, I mean, that would just pull everything together, wouldn't it? I'm not trying to give them any ideas. But I'm just saying, there are things that we need to be on the lookout for, and it's better to say these things and get them out right away and have people know about them. I mean, even if it does give them the idea, oh, we heard this from we could actually use that. Well, no, they can't actually. They could, yes, but either way, I mean, it just, fine, whatever. That gives more proof to us being right. I mean, it's not good that, anything like that ever happens, but when we think of these things, we need to put it out there and we need to talk about it. We need to get it, in the know, so that people that in future times can look back on this and go, oh my God, these people were right. It's very important to be able to do that. Moving on here, this is a fitting next piece. This is titled Hate. Anti-government extremists are on the rise and on the march, from Newsweek. And here, we'll show you this real quick. Alright, that's what we got. Stuart Rhodes does not seem like an extremist. He is a graduate of Yale Law School and a former U.S. Army paratrooper and congressional staffer. He is not at all secretive. In February, he was sitting at a table at the annual Conservative Political Action Conference, CPAC, at a fancy downtown hotel in Washington, handing out flyers and selling t-shirts for his organization, Oath Keepers. Rhodes says he has 6,000 dues-paying members, active and retired police and military, who promise never to take orders to disarm U.S. citizens or herd them into concentration camps. Rhodes told a Newsweek reporter, "We're not a militia. Oath Keepers do not run around the woods on the weekend shooting weapons or threatening a violent overthrow of the government. Their oath is to uphold the Constitution and defend American people from dictatorship." But by conjuring up the specter of revolution or counter-revolution, is Rhodes adding to the threat of real violence? Really? So, now the only way that he's adding to the threat of real violence is not through actions of his own, but is through implication from you, Newsweek. Newsweek is the only reason that anybody's thinking about this right now. Remember that. Oath Keepers are a particularly worrisome example of the Patriot Revival, according to Mark Potok of the Southern Poverty Law Center, which monitors hate speech and extremist organizations. Oh, so this is where we get our information, the SPLC. Now you see where this is going, if you know anything about the SPLC. They demonize people who tell the truth. Alright, let's see here. Patriot groups described by the SPLC as outfits that see federal government as part of a plot to impose one world government on liberty-loving Americans are roaring back after years out of the limelight, according to Potok. Really? Here we go. Notorious in the aftermath of the Oklahoma City bombing, again an OKC reference, in 1995, the Patriot groups seemed to fade away under the shadow of 9/11. But hard times and the nation's first African-American president seem to have brought about a revival from 149 groups in 2008 to 512, 127 of them militias, in 2009, according to the SPLC.